Welcome to this edition of the Skn Newsline Newscast. I'm Andre Huey. Is mandatory vaccination against COVID-19 necessary and legal in the Commonwealth Caribbean? We explore that issue in this report. There is no need for mandatory vaccination against COVID-19 at this time in the Commonwealth Caribbean countries. This is the view of regional health and legal experts during a recent virtual panel discussion on the subject of mandatory vaccination in the Caribbean. Dr. Peter Figueroa, epidemiologist from the University of the West Indies, Mona, said there may be need for mandatory vaccination for some sectors of the society if the pandemic worsens, but not right now.
I think it's too early to be talking about mandatory vaccination for COVID, but let's say the variants really begin to cause a lot of trouble and health workers are falling down because they are getting sicker as well. Then the question arises, I don't know whether it was Professor Antwine or Dr. Barnett who said it, you know, there are policies in hospitals in the US and elsewhere where health providers have to be vaccinated with some of the established vaccines. All our medical students have to be vaccinated fully, included from hepatitis B and this sort of thing, not yet influenza. But even now we're thinking, should we not require health providers to be vaccinated? So we have to always put these things in context.
Meanwhile, looking at the legality of mandatory vaccinations in the Caribbean, Professor Rose-Marie Bell-Antwine, labor law specialist, is suggesting providing choices to persons rather than mandating vaccination, as is the case with some vaccines, such as the yellow fever vaccine. She said constitutionality will influence the question of reasonableness of COVID-19 measures taken, including vaccination.
The legal approach can be passive or it can be indirect, it can be soft law. And this happens even before COVID. It's often de facto. So for example, there's no law that says you must take a yellow fever vaccine. But we know that if you want to fly to many places in the world, and certainly if you're from Trinidad, then you can't go anywhere without it. So no one forces you to do it, but if you don't, well, you can't do what you want. And a similar situation is already happening with the COVID vaccine and the airlines. Just this week, Cal said that you can't fly if you have not been vaccinated, if you're a non-national. No one bats an eyelid. There is an illusion of choice. That approach actually has worked with courts before. For example, in Europe and the UK, in terms of preventing persons wearing their hijab at workplaces, the court said, well, you're not forced. You have a choice. You can work somewhere else. And that kind of thinking is already emerging in terms of COVID. In the first case that came up in Texas, the case of Bridges and the Methodist Hospital. And the court said, well, the vaccine was not coercion, since the Methodist Hospital was in the business of saving lives without giving them the COVID-19 virus. It is a choice made to keep starved patients and their families safer. Bridges could freely choose to accept or refuse the vaccine. However, if she refuses, she will simply need to work somewhere else.
The panel discussion was streamed live on YouTube and Facebook and was broadcast on some local media outlets. Andre Huey, Skn Newsline. Conditions and divisions can now look forward to Culturama this year after an announcement in the Nevis Island Assembly that the event will take place in September 2021. Skn Newsline's Glenn Bart has more.
Minister Eric Evelyn of the Nevis Island Administration announced the rescheduling of the 2021 Culturama 47, originally slated for July into early August. Minister Evelyn, who has responsibility for matters of culture in the Nevis Island Assembly, said the recent COVID-19 related lockdown forced the cancellation of several shows and necessitated changes to this year's presentation of the very popular cultural event on Nevis. Notwithstanding the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, the minister disclosed altered plans for the holding of Culturama in 2021 when he spoke in the Nevis Island Assembly on 13 July.
We had to cancel the Mr. Cool and the swimwear competition that was scheduled for this year. We had scaled back our activities, but I think I can say, and I believe that persons will be happy to hear, that even though we had to cancel what we were planning for late July, early August, that you will be having some semblance of Culturama over the Independence holiday weekend. Mr. President, you look like you're ready to jam. You look up quick when I say that, boy. We will be having some semblance of activities because the good thing about it is that we had already received permission from the COVID-19 task force. And so the permission is there. All we need to do now is to say, well, we are rescheduling. And so I know that the Calypsonians and the soca artists in particular, and I believe I see 2 of the Calypsonians in here, they will be very happy to hear because they would have put in a lot of work, Mr. President. The Calypsonians and the soca artists in particular, they would have put a lot of work in, they would have put a lot of money in, and they would have released some of their songs. They would have been rehearsing already, and we don't want to leave them in the cold. And so we have proposed some activities for the Independence weekend to ensure that our artists have an outlet, and some of the persons in general on the island can have some enjoyment for the Culturama.
Calypso Tents, the Soca and Calypso Monarch competitions, the Culture Pot, a steel band competition, and a Division Heritage Day are among the activities of the 2021 Culturama. But Minister Evelyn also announced a special in which only persons vaccinated against COVID-19 can participate.
What we are proposing on Monday, the 20th of September, which will be a public holiday, T-shirt masks, and that we are proposing that activity for fully vaccinated revelers only. And it will be hosted at the Villa Grounds, and the event will run from 1 to 7 p.m. And what we are proposing to do is to sell some T-shirt packages ahead of the event to fully vaccinated persons only. So only if you're fully vaccinated will you be able to attend that function at the Villa Grounds.
The 2020 edition of Culturama was cancelled as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. But with an AstraZeneca vaccination program in place, the COVID-19 task force is more confident that some control events could take place. Glenn Barrett reporting for Skn Newsline.
When we come back, we look at the preparations ahead of the opening of early childhood and daycare centers on Wednesday.
Elliott's Funeral Parlor is the first licensed embalmer in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. We have a friendly and professional staff. At Elliott's Funeral Parlor, we offer a wide range of packages from $6,500, homegoing service at chapel, locally made caskets, tailoring of outfit for deceased of your choice, wake, overnight with slideshow, funeral, death announcement, obituary, booklets, family pin-ons, memorial books, preparation of funeral arrangements, wreath, fresh and artificial. For further information, call 469-3298, 664-2007, or 660-0186. Elliott's Funeral Parlor in Gingerland, Nevis. Dedicated to those we serve.
When you need electronics or appliances, find just what you want
quickly in one location.
Yes, everything's under one roof.
Only at Smart Electronics.
We have tons of name brands, amazing service,
and easy layaway plans.
Summer is just around the corner, and we will save you the hassle of walking around town
or going to St. Martin.
We have everything you need right here in St. Kitts, so don't get confused and go different places. We are located at Port Zonte opposite the food court. Visit us today, or if you have any questions, you can call
466-4271.
Smart Electronics, way to live a smart life. Terms and conditions apply.
Where will we go when the quarantine thing done and everybody touch?
An open interactive event can be described as
tremendous, effective,
on par with any conference around the world.
From exhibitions to trade shows, corporate events to product launches, from press events to political functions. We are the secret sauce behind events that make you go, wow. We've staged multiple world-class events in the Caribbean and developed the skill to deliver quality in every detail, whether the event is live or fully virtual, or maybe even somewhere in between. At Open Interactive, we got your events covered. Get your free quotation today at www.madebyopen.com.
Auto Plus Car Wash, located on the College Street Gut, Bastyr, St. Kitts. Bring your car to Auto Plus Car Wash to remove water stains, wiper marks. Get your doors, roof panel cleaned, seat floor mats, buffing, headlights, and engine wash. You get quality service at the best price at Auto Plus Car Wash. They really care for your car. Call 765-5140 or visit them on the College Street Gut, Bastyr, St. Kitts. Auto Plus Car Wash, where the service is number one.
Welcome back. Early childhood centers to reopen Wednesday with revised protocols. Early childhood centers are expected to reopen on Wednesday with revised operating protocols. This after the Early Childhood Development Unit, ECDU, within the Ministry of Education, engaged private proprietors and supervisors of the various childhood centers in meetings on the way forward for the reopening of daycare centers following a close down prompted by a community spread of the current COVID-19 virus. These sessions were held on Monday, July 12th, at the ICCS School Auditorium. Ms. Kimona Brown, director of the Early Childhood Unit, reminded center owners and supervisors of the need to adhere to the already established COVID-19 protocols and informed that there would be additional operating procedures that should be followed by children and staff. Ms. Brown outlined the improvements to the operating procedures for the centers, which include utilizing face shields in addition to masks to minimize exposure to respiratory droplets that can result during daily care and education of children. All staff are to utilize aprons while working to further protect their personal health and wellness. Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Mr. William Hodge, addressed the issue of implementation and compliance. He said, quote, "We know that the country is reopening gradually. Parents are expected to return to work, hence the need for the early childhood sector to be operational so that they can continue to take care of the infants and preschoolers who cannot be left at home by themselves. We are hoping that there will be much compliance because we understand that we have to try to keep the virus at bay out of any or our preschools, because once the virus gets into our preschools, then it means that center preschool will have to close." End quote. Mr. Hodge expressed that monitoring the centers for compliance is the responsibility of the Early Childhood Unit. He said that the Ministry of Education will be providing assistance through a donation of face shields to the early childhood centers and appeal to the private proprietors to adhere to the established operational protocols instituted by the Early Childhood Development Unit. I'm Andre Huey reporting for SKN Newsline. Government authorities have indicated the continuation of major projects on St. Kitts as they financially remain unaffected by the presence of the COVID-19 pandemic. Glenn Bart has more.
The COVID-19 pandemic will not have an adverse impact on major capital projects, according to Ms. Hilary Hazel, the Financial Secretary of the Government of St. Kitts and Nevis. According to Financial Secretary Hazel, the allocation of funds as indicated in the 2021 estimates remain as approved. Consequently, such projects can proceed or be completed. With the necessity to complete the Island Main Road and to commence construction of the new Bastyr High School, Prime Minister Dr. Timothy Harris said it was a matter of timing because of the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic.
There would be no anticipated impact on the government's capital program as a result of the pandemic on the fiscal affairs of the government. We have articulated a budget that is publicly available in our estimates, and we have provided the resources that would be required to execute that budget.
Main issue would be one of timing, because as you know, when we are in lockdown, certain activities are postponed. As a result, unless the Commissioner of Police, in his own deliberate judgment, undertake to give some leeway for certain projects to take place.
With the lockdown completed and the economy reopened, it remains to be seen how quickly infrastructural projects can be started or completed in the coming months. Glenn Bard reporting for SKN Newsline.
The SKN Newsline website now offers you more news. Log on to www.sknnewsline.com for local, regional, and international news. You can also watch the latest newscast and keep abreast with news in sports, all from sknnewsline.com. That's www.sknnewsline.com. News at your fingertips.
It's the new and improved Skn Newsline Android mobile app. With the Skn Newsline app, you can watch your news reports, the Skn Newsline Newscast, sports, special features, and so much more. You can also send us a WhatsApp or call us directly. Go in the Google Play Store, search Skn Newsline, and download the app today. The Skn Newsline mobile app. News on the go. Welcome back. Now turn our attentions to a look at news across the region. Police in Cuba have arrested dozens of protesters for taking part in the biggest demonstration in decades. They are angry about the economic toll from the coronavirus pandemic and what they say is the government's failure to contain the outbreak. Cuba's President Miguel Diaz-Canel on Monday blamed outside forces and U.S. sanctions. Al Jazeera's Reed Lindsay reports from Havana, Cuba.
Thousands took to the streets across Cuba on Sunday in the biggest protest the country has seen in decades. The chants centered on civil liberties and the political system, but the driving force behind the demonstrations was anger over a devastating economic crisis that has caused widespread shortages of food and medicine.
I have nothing to cook with. The power cut out more than 20 times yesterday.
Love. It's because we don't have fuel and we've had to cut the electricity.
Protesters blame the government for Cuba's economic crisis. A day after visiting the site of one of the protests, Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel attributed the scarcities to the 60-year-old U.S. embargo.
All those issues that are present in our society now, such as dissatisfaction, what are their origins? What caused them? It's the blockade.
On Monday, the streets of Havana were calm. The Trump administration intensified the U.S. embargo, passing a barrage of sanctions that devastated the Cuban economy. COVID exacerbated the crisis. So far, President Joe Biden has maintained the sanctions despite a campaign promise to change U.S. policy towards Cuba. But Cuba's dire economic situation, and with it, the frustration and anger of its population, continues with no end in sight.
A boat from Jamaica en route to Honduras has disappeared from Jamaican waters, sparking a hunt for the missing vessel and those on it. TVJ News reports.
Missing since Tuesday. This is the boat owned by Rainforest Seafoods that vanished in Jamaican waters en route from Honduras.
We've lost contact, and as such it has disappeared. Just a couple miles off Pedro Key, so it was in our waters. So actually what is happening is now that the search is on to find the vessel fully and the crew.
Information reaching TVJ News is that all 15 crew members are Honduran contractors working with Rainforest Seafoods. Now in a release, Rainforest said Falling Star is one of its lobster fishing vessels and was returning from routine maintenance overseas and stopped sending tracking signals on the afternoon of July 6. The vessel was 30 miles west of Peter Bank. Marine Police, the JDF Coast Guard, and members of the U.S. Coast Guard have been assisting with search and rescue efforts since Wednesday. Rainforest says Cubans and the Caymanian Coast Guard and Honduran Coast Guard are also lending support. The Jamaican company says so far there has been no significant visual sighting and is requesting help from anyone or entity with able vessels. Giovanni Dennis, TVJ News.
South Africa's military has been deployed after protests against the jailing of former President Jacob Zuma turned violent. At least 6 people have been killed and hundreds arrested in Zuma's home province of KwaZulu-Natal and Kwanteng province. Zuma is in prison for refusing to obey court orders to appear before a panel on investigating corruption during his time in office. Al Jazeera's Famida Miller reports from Johannesburg, South Africa.
After 4 days of rioting, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa appeared on television appealing for calm.
Although these may be opportunistic acts of looting driven by hardship and poverty, the poor and the marginalized bear the ultimate brunt of the destruction that is currently underway. As I said, shops have been looted and infrastructure has been destroyed.
The violence was sparked by the imprisonment of former President Jacob Zuma. He's been jailed for 15 months for contempt of court after not complying with an inquiry into corruption. He's applied to the Constitutional Court to review the sentence it imposed, saying it's unconstitutional. Many of Zuma's supporters say he's been jailed unfairly, and they've taken to the streets to voice their anger. But the government says what began as support for Zuma in the KwaZulu-Natal province is now being driven by crime. At this mall in Soweto, south of Johannesburg, police are powerless as thousands of people descend, grabbing whatever they can.
Many of these stores have been ransacked, and the police that we've spoken to here have said they simply don't have enough resources. In fact, they've been pushed back by these looters, some of them stationed within the car park. As soon as any of the looters are apprehended by police, rocks are thrown and police have to leave.
At least 6 people have been killed and more than 500 arrested. The unrest has caused public services in some areas to be suspended, including COVID-19 vaccination programs. And now the military is being sent in to help overwhelmed police. It's not certain how long the army will have to be deployed, but there are concerns that a high unemployment rate, worsened by a strict COVID-19 lockdown, is contributing to the violence. And while boots on the ground may quell violence for now, South Africa's economic and political problems may run far deeper. Famida Miller, Al Jazeera, Johannesburg.
In sports, the Federation's athletes performed creditably at the North American, Central American and Caribbean Athletics Association NACAC Games held in Costa Rica last weekend. Amia Clark clinched her inaugural spot to Tokyo by copying a silver medal in the women's under-23 100-meter dash with a time of 11.90 seconds. Division Leroy Chapman, who represented the Federation in the men's 400 meters final, placed 5th with a time of 50.12 seconds. The other 2 athletes represented at the games were Janaza Francis and Ian Liburd. Amia Clark will now join Jason Rogers to represent the Federation at the Tokyo Olympic Games set for July 23rd to August 8th at the Japan National Stadium. Rogers qualified at the American Track League in Atlanta, Georgia on July 9th with a time of 10.26 seconds in the men's 100-meter dash. On to cricket, Chris Gayle put a thunderous display with his first T20 international half-century since 2016 to secure a series victory for West Indies as he pummeled the Australian attack around St. Lucia to what became a cakewalk. This as West Indies engaged Australia in the 3rd T20 match of the ongoing series on Monday night. The scores: Australia won 41 for 6 in 20 overs, West Indies won 42 for 4 in 14.5 overs. Henriquez had 33 for Australia. Hayden Walsh Jr. picked up 2 wickets for 18 for the West Indies. Chris Gayle had 67 and Nicholas Pruan 33 not out. Meredith picked up 3 wickets for 48 for Australia. Chris Gayle was voted the man of the match. And staying with cricket, a batting masterclass from Hayley Matthews took the West Indies women to an 8-wicket victory over Pakistan in the GC Insurance third one-day international at Sir Vivian Richards Stadium in Antigua, sealing a series win for the home team with 2 matches to go. The scores: Pakistan women 182 all out in 49 overs, West Indies 183 for 2 in 40.1 overs. West Indies women winning by 8 wickets. Hayley Matthews with the GC Insurance Player of the Match. Now to news in football. Argentina won their first major title in 28 years on Saturday, and Lionel Messi finally won his first medal in a blue and white shirt when Angel Di Maria gave them a 1-0 victory over Brazil and a record equaling 15th Copa America. Di Maria started for just the second time in the Copa, justified his selection by scoring the opener midway through the first half. Argentina's win was particularly triumph for Barcelona striker Messi, who picked up his first ever title in a blue and white shirt after more than a decade of club and individual honors. You have been watching the Skn Newsline newscast. I'm Andre Huey. From all of us here at Skn Newsline and Channel 95, thank you for watching.